Hey folks, Jordan with the Young Turks, TYT Politics. I hope you're having a lovely day, and quite the day so far, I would say. If you are sleeping under a rock or you haven't done any reading on Twitter or online yet, Donna Brazile, who obviously I've had my encounters with, and we all know she was the interim chair of the DNC after Debbie Wasserman Schultz had to resign in disgrace. And just give me some comments if you could hear me. I've been having some connectivity issues this week. So far, so good. Looks like you could hear me. Donna Brazile is out with a piece in Politico. I'm going to go through the piece with you. I'm going to give you my thoughts. Emma is going to be live after me. Nomi is going to be live on this. It's all hands on deck because I think this is a very, very big piece. The piece is titled Inside Hillary Clinton's Secret Takeover of the DNC. And that piece is on Politico.com. Again, Inside Hillary Clinton's Secret Takeover of the DNC. She says, when I was asked to run the Democratic Party after the Russians hacked our emails, I stumbled onto a shocking truth about the Clinton campaign. I'm not even going to get into the Russian hacking of the emails. I've already told you my thoughts on that over and over again. Let's put that to the side for now. Before I even get into the story, I want to say two things. Number one, when we attack or criticize corrupt officials, we also need to give them credit when they do the right thing. I'm not a huge fan of Donna Brazile. It should also be pointed out that she is out with her book next week, so I don't think it's a coincidence. She is out with this Politico piece today. However, she deserves credit for coming out and saying these things. So credit where credit is due. Whether you like her, whether you don't, this is a piece that is essentially her serving as a whistleblower. Whatever her motives for it, whether she wants to sell books, whether she's doing it out of spite, I don't know. I don't care. Credit is credit. So, I'm going to read to you and tell you my thoughts as we go. Before I called Bernie Sanders, I lit a candle in my living room and put on some gospel music. I wanted to center myself for what I knew would be an emotional phone call. Damn, I should have done this video with some candles all over. That would have been nice. I had promised Bernie Sanders when I took the helm of the Democratic National Committee after the convention that I would get to the bottom of whether Hillary Clinton's team had rigged the nomination process, as a cache of emails stolen by Russian hackers and posted online had suggested. Again, I'm not getting into the Russian hacking business. I don't see firm evidence that the Russians hacked the DNC. Nobody has provided that. I've done many, many videos on that, but in order to focus on Donna Brazile and what she's saying, I'm going to put that to the side. So, I'd had my suspicions from the moment I walked in the door of the DNC a month or so earlier based on the leaked emails. But who knew if some of them might have been forged? I needed to have solid proof, and so did Bernie. And share this video. Let's get this out to more people. This is a major story, not only with implications for what happened in 2016, with implications for what's going to happen in 2018 and for the nominating process in 2020. So don't think this is just about what has happened already. This is about what's going to happen and what we could make sure does not happen. So I followed the money. My predecessor, Florida Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz, had not been the most active chair in fundraising at a time when President Barack Obama's neglect had left the party in significant debt. As Hillary's campaign gained momentum, she resolved the party's debt and put it on a starvation diet. It had become dependent on her campaign for survival, for which she expected to wield control of its operations. So right there is our first indication from Donna Brazile that Hillary Clinton's campaign was basically controlling the DNC, the quote, neutral DNC, essentially since 2015, way before she officially was nominated as the Democratic Party nominee. Again, if you become the formal nominee, it makes sense that you and the party would collaborate in the general election on finances, on strategy, on all those things. But Hillary Clinton's campaign, as this piece is going to tell you, seized control of the DNC as early as August 2015. So, Debbie was not a good manager. among other things she's not good at, she hadn't been very interested in controlling the party. She let Clinton's headquarters in Brooklyn do as it desired, so she didn't have to inform the party officers how bad the situation was. How much control Brooklyn meaning Hillary Clinton's campaign, had, and for how long was still something I had been trying to uncover for the last few weeks. By September 7th, the day I called Bernie, I had found my proof and it broke my heart. So again, she says, Debbie Wasserman Schultz let Clinton's headquarters in Brooklyn do as it desired, so she didn't have to inform the party officers how bad the situation was. I don't care if you're the Democratic Party, I don't care if you're the Republican Party, and make no mistake, Republican Party, it's not like they're Boy Scouts, those boys and girls. They're corrupt too. But the neutral DNC, whose job it is to essentially go on TV, attack the Republicans, whose job it is to fundraise for down-ballot candidates, the neutral DNC, essentially, as early as 2015, was letting Hillary Clinton's campaign run roughshod, do whatever the hell they wanted. And more in this article tells you how much they did. So, and by the way, if you're watching this video and you're not actually subscribed to TYT Politics, get the hell out of here. I don't want you. Subscribe to the channel right now. The Saturday morning after the convention in July, I called Gary Gensler, the chief financial officer of Hillary's campaign. He wasted no words. He told me the Democratic Party was broke and $2 million in debt. What? I screamed. By the way, this is Donna Brazile wrote this. I am an officer of the party and they've been telling us everything is fine and they were raising money with no problems. That wasn't true, he said. Officials from Hillary's campaign had taken a look at the DNC's books. So, right there, why in the world was Hillary Clinton's campaign able to look at the Democratic National Committee's budget or financial books before she was nominated as Democratic nominee? Do you think Bernie Sanders' campaign had the same opportunity to look at those books? Absolutely not. This was not a neutral political party or political fundraising campaign, but serving as a neutral arbiter where they were neutral and were staying out of the race. And by the way, this isn't just about Bernie Sanders. I don't want to just make this Hillary versus Bernie. It's fun to attack Hillary Clinton and the DNC, but it's not just about Bernie. This is about, do we live in a democracy? Do we have free and fair elections, or we do not? And I think this shows we do not. So, this wasn't true, he said. Officials from Hillary's campaign had taken a look at the DNC's books. Obama left the party $24 million in debt, $15 million in bank debt, and more than $8 million owed to vendors after the 2012 campaign, and had been paying that off very slowly. How's that for hope and change? Obama left the DNC $24 million in debt. I've reported on this in the past. Others have reported on this, but Obama, pretty much after he won in 2008, sucked the resources right out of the DNC and took it over to his Organizing for America group. Obama's campaign was not scheduled to pay off that debt until 2016. Hillary for America, which was Hillary Clinton's actual campaign fundraising committee, and the Hillary Victory Fund, its joint fundraising vehicle with the DNC, had taken care of 80% of the remaining debt in 2016, about $10 million, and had placed the party on an allowance. If I didn't know about this, I assumed that none of the other officers knew about it either. That was just Debbie's way. And by the way, why do you think Debbie Wasserman Schultz did not tell any of the other officers about this? Could it have anything to do with the fact that she was Hillary Clinton's co-chairwoman of her 2008 campaign, which was a blatant conflict of interest in the first place? You can't have Hillary Clinton's campaign chairwoman in 2008, I think it was like deputy or co-chair. She wasn't the main campaign chairman. You can't have Hillary Clinton's 2008 campaign co-chair literally running the neutral DNC. How do you expect for Bernie Sanders or any other candidate that was to run against Hillary Clinton to have a shot? It's blasphemy. It's a joke. A joke. It's not fair to Bernie Sanders. It's not fair to the voters. And it's not fair to democracy. And by the way, as I've always said, we don't live in a democracy, and this shows it even more. And don't even get me started on the fact that CNN, MSNBC, from what I can see, are not covering this today, which I might do a video on later. Yes, I'm so anti-feminist because I tell the truth. I'm such a sexist because I tell the truth. So Donna Brazile is saying, I didn't know about it. I assume that none of the other officers knew about it either. That was just Debbie's way. In my experience, she didn't come to the officers of the DNC for advice and counsel. She seemed to make decisions on her own and let us know at the last minute what she had decided, as she had done when she told us about the hacking only minutes before the Washington Post broke the news. On the phone, Gary told me the DNC had needed a $2 million loan, which the campaign, Hillary Clinton's campaign, had arranged. No, that can't be true, Brazile said. The party cannot take out a loan without the unanimous agreement of all of the officers. And Nomiki, who covered the DNC chair's race, who is actually on the Unity Commission, she's going to go in depth on this in her video. She'll be live on Facebook, on TYT Politics Facebook at around 1:30, to go over how the DNC isn't following its own bylaws. They're breaking their own bylaws, which this shows. No, this can't be true, Brazile said. The party cannot take out a loan without the unanimous agreement of all of its officers. Gary, how did they do this without me knowing? Brazile asked. I don't know how Debbie related to the officers, Gary said. He described the party as fully under the control of Hillary's campaign, which seemed to confirm the suspicions of the Bernie camp and all of us. The campaign had the DNC on life support, giving it money every month to meet its basic expenses, while the campaign was using the party as a fundraising clearinghouse. Oh my God. Under FEC law, an individual can contribute a maximum of $2,700 directly to a presidential campaign, but the limits are much higher for contributions to state parties and a party's national committee. And this is where the Hillary Victory Fund comes in. Politico did reporting on this last year. Cenk did a whole great video on this. This was a money laundering operation. Individuals who had maxed out their $2,700 contribution limit to the campaign would write an additional check for $353,400 to the Hillary Victory Fund. That figure represented $10,000 to each of the 32 state parties who were part of the Hillary Victory Fund agreement. $320,000 and $33,400 to the DNC. The money would be deposited in the states first and transferred to the DNC shortly after that. Money in the battleground states usually stayed in that state, but all the other states funneled that money directly to the DNC, which quickly transferred the money to Brooklyn. Translated, the DNC wasn't getting this money. It was going to the states, then funneled from the states to the DNC, then funneled from the DNC to the Hillary campaign, all while Bernie Sanders was fundraising millions and millions and millions of dollars with an average donation of $27 from you and from all progressive people who volunteered their time and gave money that they did not have. A lot of people paid money that they really couldn't afford to give because they believed in Bernie Sanders and his message. Wait, I said, Brazile said. That victory fund was supposed to be for whoever was the nominee and the state party races. You're telling me that Hillary has been controlling it since before she got the nomination? Let me repeat that. Wait, I said. That victory fund was supposed to be for whoever was the nominee and the state party races. You're telling me that Hillary has been controlling it since before she got the nomination. It gets worse than controlling the victory fund, which you're about to find out. Gary said the campaign had to do it or the party would collapse. Quote, that was the deal that Robbie struck with Debbie. Robbie was Robbie Mook. He was Hillary Clinton's campaign manager. That was the deal that Robbie struck with Debbie, he explained, referring to campaign manager Robbie Mook. It was to sustain the DNC. We sent the party nearly $20 million from September until the convention and more to prepare for the election. Let me make that crystal clear. It was to sustain the DNC. We sent the party nearly $20 million from September until the convention and more to prepare for the election. So that means Hillary Clinton's campaign sent the party nearly $20 million from September of 2015 until the convention. So Hillary Clinton's campaign was both partnering with the DNC and funneling money to the DNC as early as 2015. Before, by the way, before any debates, before any conventions, before anything having to do with Bernie Sanders and getting his message out there. Bernie was a formal candidate, but Bernie Sanders could have been involved. The Joint Victory Fund was open to Bernie's campaign too. He wanted no part of that, which we'll get to. What was the burn rate, Gary? I asked. How much money do we need every month to fund the party? The burn rate was $3.5 million to $4 million a month, Gary told Donna Brazile. I gasped, Brazile said. I had a pretty good sense of the DNC's operations after having served as interim chair 5 years earlier. Back then, the monthly expenses were half that. What had happened? The party chair usually shrinks the staff between presidential election campaigns, but Debbie had chosen not to do that. She had stuck lots of consultants on the DNC payroll. Nomi has talked about this at length. The consultant industrial complex at the DNC, where there's more money spent on consultants than actual candidates and down ballot races. And Obama's consultants were being financed by the DNC too. When we hung up, I was livid, Brazile said. Not at Gary, but at this mess I had inherited. I knew that Debbie had outsourced a lot of the management of the party and had not been the greatest at fundraising. I would not be that kind of chairwoman, even if I was only interim chair. Did they think I would just be a surrogate for them, get on the road and rouse up the crowds? I was going to manage this party the best I could and try to make it better, even if Brooklyn, meaning Hillary Clinton's campaign, did not like this. It would be weeks before I would fully understand the financial shenanigans that were keeping the party on life support. And by the way, I just want to make sure that this is an underreported part. So when Hillary Clinton went on a little book tour and threw the DNC under the bus and threw the Russians under the bus and the mailman under the bus, and it's everybody else's fault but her, why she lost to an orange orangutan. She said, when I became the nominee, I inherited a DNC in total financial disaster. I inherited a DNC at the brink of, not even being able to operate. Well, part of the reason the DNC was in such bad financial shape was because this Hillary Victory Fund was not keeping the money that was supposed to be going to the DNC in the DNC. It was funneling that money back to the Hillary Clinton campaign. So Hillary Clinton acted like she was some innocent flower that just took over this bankrupted and indebted DNC when this money laundering scheme is the big reason the DNC didn't have any money, in addition to Barack Obama taking resources out of the DNC and nearly bankrupting the DNC. So Mr. Hope and Change and Mrs. Stronger Together were not giving the DNC much hope, and they certainly weren't stronger together. Brazile went on to say, right around the time of the convention, that the leaked emails revealed Hillary's campaign was grabbing money from the state parties for its own purposes, leaving the states with very little to support down-ballot races. A political story published in May 2016 described the big fundraising vehicle she had launched through the states the summer before, quoting a vow she had made to rebuild the party from the ground up. When our state parties are strong, we win. That's what will happen, Hillary Clinton had said. Yet, the states kept less than half of 1%. Let me repeat that. The states kept less than half of 1% of the $82 million they had amassed from the extravagant fundraisers Hillary's campaign was holding, just as Gary had described to me when he and I talked in August. When the political story described this arrangement as, quote, essentially money laundering for the Clinton campaign, Hillary's people were outraged at being accused of doing something shady. Go figure. Bernie's people were angry for their own reasons, saying this was part of a calculated strategy to throw the nomination to Hillary. I wanted to believe Hillary, who made campaign finance reform part of her platform, but I had made this pledge to Bernie and did not want to disappoint him. I kept asking the party lawyers and the DNC staff to show me the agreements that the party had made for sharing the money they raised, but there was a lot of shuffling of feet and looking the other way. Usually when you shuffle the feet and look the other way, it's because you are hiding corruption. When I got back from a vacation in Martha's Vineyard, I at last found the document that described it all. The joint fundraising agreement between the DNC, the Hillary Victory Fund, and Hillary for America. The agreement, signed by Amy Dacey, the former CEO of the DNC, and Robbie Mook, with a copy to Mark Elias, specified that in exchange for raising money and investing in the DNC, Hillary would control. Let me just capitalize that. Hillary would control the party's finances, strategy, and all the money raised. Her campaign had the right of refusal of who would be the party's communications director, and it would make the final decisions on all the other staff. The DNC also was required to consult with the campaign about all other staffing, budgeting, data, analytics, and mailing. I had been wondering why it was that I couldn't write a press release without passing it by Brooklyn. Well, here was the answer. Ladies and gentlemen, we got them. When CNN, when MSNBC, when the New York Times, when the Washington Post, when the Associated Press, and all these public relations professionals masquerading as journalists sat there and screamed at you Bernie bros and you Bernie sisters, which has now been invented, and you progressives and you sore losers and you radicals and you anarchists. There's no, you're making a big thing out of nothing. There was no rigging. Oh God, just grow up, fall in line, back Hillary or we're gonna get a fascist. When they told you, do not believe your lying eyes. This is what they were doing. Not the media, but this is who they were protecting. Conspiracy theorist is right. You're a conspiracy theorist. I'm going to read this to you one more time because I think, to me, Emma at 1 o'clock, so about 45 minutes, is going to go in depth on the actual money laundering scheme. I just skimmed the surface on that. She's going 1 o'clock on the Hillary Victory Fund and the money laundering scheme. 1:35, Nomiki on Facebook. When Hillary would control the party's finances, the strategy, and all the money raised, her campaign had the right of refusal of who would be the party's communications director, and it would make the final decisions on all the other staff. The DNC also was required to consult with the campaign about all other staffing, budgeting, data, analytics, and mailing. Folks, that right there is the firmest admission. We did not have a free and fair election. We did not have a Democratic primary that had the DNC as a neutral party. We had not even the nominee yet. We had a candidate who essentially as early as the summer of 2015 had basically hijacked the Democratic National Committee, not that they're innocent, and basically took control and rigged the entire game for herself. So when you have debates set up on the Saturday night before Christmas where nobody is watching, when you have the DNC planting negative stories about Bernie Sanders with the media, right? When you have the DNC chair, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, going on TV and literally lying about chairs being thrown at a Nevada convention. When you have all this, this is why. Because in exchange for getting money from Hillary Clinton and Hillary Clinton's campaign, basically keeping the DNC running, the DNC basically had to do the bidding of Hillary Clinton and her campaign. And by the way, not just unfair to Bernie Sanders. Let's not forget Martin O'Malley was a candidate. Let's not forget good old Lincoln Chafee was a candidate. Let's not forget, what's-his-face, Jim Webb was a candidate for 5 minutes. This was, unfair is the wrong word, this was undemocratic and completely corrupt. Yet everybody told me, fall in line. Everybody told you, fall in line. During the campaign, when people asked me, well, are you going to vote for Hillary or are you going to vote for Trump? I said, I'm certainly not voting for Trump. And to me, Trump is awful, but can I just ignore blatant corruption? Part of the problem with this country is we allow blatant corruption, we normalize blatant corruption, and we make it seem, oh, it's bad, but it's the lesser of two evils. Well, this is why you have progressive candidates like Bernie Sanders who never have a chance. Because the system is systematically set up so that they lose. Brazile went on to say, when the party chooses the nominee, the custom is that the candidate's team starts to exercise more control over the party. That is the key point. Hillary Clinton's campaign could have exerted more control of the DNC when she became the actual Democratic nominee, not a day or a minute or a second before that. That's the corruption. She was in charge of she basically was the queen of the DNC, even above her BFF, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, or as my friend Jimmy Dore likes to say, Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And share this video. Let's get this to more people. Brazile said, when the party chooses the nominee, the custom is that the candidate's team starts to exercise more control over the party. If the party has an incumbent candidate, as was the case with Clinton in '96 or Obama in 2012, this kind of arrangement is seamless because the party is already under the control of the president. When you have an open contest without an incumbent and competitive primaries, the party comes under the candidate's control only after the nominee is certain. When I was manager of Gore's campaign in 2000, we started inserting our people into the DNC in June. This Victory Fund agreement, however, had been signed in August 2015, just 4 months after Hillary announced her candidacy and nearly a year before she officially had the nomination. I had tried to search out any other evidence of internal corruption that would show that the DNC was rigging the system to throw the primary to Hillary, but I could not find any in party affairs or among the staff. I had gone department by department, investigating individual conduct for evidence of skewed decisions, and I was happy to see that I had found none. Then I found this agreement. I don't know if you looked too hard if you didn't find anything else, but that's a different piece. The funding arrangement with Hillary for America and the Victory Fund agreement was not illegal, but it sure looked unethical. If the fight had been fair, one campaign would not have control of the party before the voters had decided which one they wanted to lead. That is very well said, Donna Brazile. I will give you credit. This was not a criminal act, but as I saw it, it compromised the party's integrity. You know what's interesting about that? Yeah, it isn't a criminal act, and that's the problem. Legalized bribery, legalized money laundering, all of this has been legalized in America, whether it's Citizens United or total shenanigans and money scams like the Hillary Victory Fund. It should be illegal. It is money laundering. It is defaming donors. She says it was unethical. If it had been a firefight, one campaign would not have control of the party before the voters had decided which one they wanted to lead it. This was not a criminal act, but as I saw it, it compromised the party's integrity. I had to keep my promise to Bernie. I was in agony as I dialed him. Keeping this secret was against everything that I stood for, all that I valued as a woman and as a public servant. Hello, Senator, Brazile told Bernie Sanders. I've completed my review of the DNC and I did find the cancer, but I will not kill the patient. It's pretty powerful. I discussed the fundraising agreement that each of the candidates had signed. Bernie was familiar with it, but he and his staff had ignored it. They had their own way of raising money through small donations. I described how Hillary's campaign had taken it another step. Taking it another step is a very charitable way of putting it, Miss Brazile. I told Bernie I had found Hillary's joint fundraising agreement. I explained that the cancer was that she had exerted this control of the party long before she became its nominee. Had I known this, I never would have accepted the interim chair position. But here we were with only weeks before the election. Bernie took this stoically. He did not yell or express outrage. Instead, he asked me what I thought Hillary's chances were. The polls were unanimous in her winning, but what he wanted to know was my own assessment. I had to be frank with him. I did not trust the polls, even though she went out in public and said she did. I told him I had visited states around the country and I found a lack of enthusiasm for Hillary everywhere. I was concerned about the Obama coalition and about millennials. But wait a minute, I thought Hillary's campaign this whole time had said, and the media said, oh, millennials are pissed now after the convention. They'll come back around and vote for Hillary. I urged Bernie to work as hard as he could to bring his supporters into the fold with Hillary and to campaign with all the heart and hope he would muster. He might find some of her positions too centrist and her coziness with the financial elites distasteful, but he knew and I knew that the alternative was a person who would put the very future of the country in peril. I knew he heard me. I knew he agreed with me, but I never in my life had felt so tiny and powerless as I did making that call. Her last line describes when she hung up, she cried. Not feeling of guilt, but out of anger. So, Emma will be live in a half hour to go more in depth on the actual Hillary Victory Fund, the money laundering, and all that business. I have a few takeaways. I'm going to be going live later as well on a few other things related to this. Here's a few takeaways. Number one, I think it's important because I think the internet sometimes can be a very vile place where we just want to attack and discredit our enemies, our political enemies. I have said a lot of nasty things about Donna Brazile based on facts and corruption. I don't think this piece by her totally absolves her of passing questions off to Hillary's campaign before debates or town halls, of some of her conduct, of lying, of the fear-mongering and the propaganda when it comes to Russia. She has to live with all that. But we can't be so polarized where we can't give credit where credit is due. I don't know why she wrote this piece. Maybe because her book is coming out next week. Probably because her book is coming out next week. But the bottom line is she did write this piece, and it did take courage, because she is basically going against the Hillary industrial complex, which still, on the surface, is in control of the Democratic Party and the DNC. The same people, the same consultants, the same operatives are in control. So I will give her credit for writing this. I think she deserves it. You don't have to like her. You don't have to forget what she's done in the past, but she deserves credit. Number two, I think this is about a lot more than just Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders, to me, I didn't make any secret that I supported him in 2016. I support him now. It has never affected my facts. I've never done anything unethical in my reporting to help boost him up. But the bottom line is this. Bernie Sanders did not have a true, fair shot in 2016. Millions of people who volunteered for him when Bernie Sanders did not have a true, fair shot. Millions of people who gave money that they did not have did so as money laundering and undemocratic things were going on in the background. That is wrong. That is corrupt. It is undemocratic. And the people responsible should be held accountable, including Debbie Wasserman Schultz, including Hillary Clinton, including Robbie Mook, including all of them. More importantly than Bernie Sanders, this showing that it was rigged and didn't have a shot, what does this mean for the future? Does anybody here feel confident that in 2020, the nominating process will be fair with Tom Perez as the DNC chair, or the DNC and the corporate media basically trying to push Hillary 2.0 forward, whether it's Kamala Harris or Cory Booker or Deval Patrick or whomever, or Joe Biden or whatever neoliberal fake progressive they put forward. I don't. And if Tom Perez doesn't come out today, not only condemning this, but I want to see the Democratic National Committee's books. I want to see the budget. I want to see its books. I want to see who they're paying money out to, and I want to see who they're taking in money from. And you deserve to see that. Transparency after these revelations is a must. Period, point blank. We need to see the money. Follow the money. They have no excuse to not show us their books and their budget, as Nomiki has been calling for. Third, I don't think any of you really have questioned or are still on the fence about corporate media. And I know a lot of people often disagree with Cenk and the Young Turks and don't think they're progressive enough or think they're in the tank for Hillary and all these things. Like, I've always been public when I disagree with the show, when I think they're talking about Trump way too much, when I think they're not covering progressive issues too much. I don't hide it. I literally have never even been said, not a word has ever come to me from Cenk or the show. Don't say this, tone it down, I don't want you covering this, don't hit the Democratic Party. If that were the case, I would be gone, because I'm not interested in playing that game or being with an organization that is a tool for the Democrats or the Republicans. Somebody wrote it, the only people I'm colluding with is facts. The only thing I'm colluding with is truth. You could put that on a bumper sticker, baby. But here's the bottom line. CNN, The New York Times, the Washington Post, the Associated Press, all of these places. Politico, to their credit, wrote about the Hillary Victory Fund a year ago. They are no longer they can't even be masquerading as journalists because they're not. This was all out in the open. Journalists knew about this. WikiLeaks had showed this. They didn't report any of it. Any of it. And by the way, these revelations, it does not mean let's ignore the crazy, awful, corrupt, dangerous current president. I'm not against covering Trump. He's the president. He's a lunatic. He's a racist. I think he is quasi-fascist. And I think it's important to cover him. I don't cover him as much as the main show or others because I don't really think I could add much value when he's being covered 24/7 by everybody. I want to cover things that are being ignored. I want to cover injustice and corruption that aren't sexy, that don't get the coverage, that don't get the viral shares. Because the people in Flint, the people in East Chicago, the people in Alabama, the people in North Carolina, the people on my disappearing middle class store, who's going to tell their stories? Certainly not the Washington Post, certainly not the New York Times. So you don't have to love TYT, you don't have to love me, but I just hope you now know that the people, CNN, the New York Times, they're not so much better than Fox News. They're all public relations, they're all propaganda, and they're all covering up for the powerful, for the extreme conservatives, and for the neoliberals because their parent companies are in bed with Hillary Clinton. Their parent companies are in bed with the Democratic Party, and that their parent companies are in bed with the moneyed interest. As I tweeted earlier, isn't it interesting that CNN isn't really covering this? While, Hillary Clinton's number 10 donor, her 10th largest donor along her career, guess who that was? Time Warner, the parent company of CNN. Her 10th largest donor, Time Warner. Wonder why they're not covering this. That's corrupt. MSNBC, whose parent company is Comcast. Wow. MSNBC's parent company, a vice president named David Cohen, was holding fundraisers for Hillary Clinton's campaign in 2016. NBC Universal, NBC Universal executives were holding fundraisers for Hillary Clinton's campaign. I wonder why they're not covering it. Well, I guess because Russia and Trump is what's giving them their ratings. Our media is a disgrace. I will use this moment to promote my book, Corporate Con Job, which is all about the propaganda, which is all about the corruption. Chapter 1 is all about how the media took down Bernie Sanders. I take you behind the scenes on the campaign trail. Download it now, corporateconjob.com. You can become a Patreon at patreon.com/Jordan Chariton. Chapter 1, Chapter 2, Chapter 3, a bonus chapter is all available now. Go get it, and if you choose, donate to support my work. Patreon.com/Jordan Chariton. I hope you'll stick around. In 20 minutes, Emma will be live at 1 o'clock. Nomi will be live around 1:30 on Facebook, and I will be live again probably at 2 o'clock on YouTube. Thank you. Oh, Nomi is also interviewing Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, who resigned from the DNC at the end of 2015 because of these types of shenanigans. Nomi will be interviewing Tulsi Gabbard at 3:15 Eastern Time on TYT Politics Facebook. It's a big day. Stick with us. Peace.